What's the coldest place you've ever been to? We're speaking about winter weather this week and the difference between under, below and beneath. Welcome to
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hello, I'm Craig.
Hi, my name's Reza.
And we're here to help you improve your English and take it to the next level. With over 45 years of teaching experience, we're going to help you grow your grammar,
Vocalize your vocabulary.
and perfect your pronunciation. Thank you. I'd forgotten that, Reza. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks. A bit slow these days, but not too bad.
You're slow. I'm so slow I've stopped, I think. How was your week?
Pretty good. Although I am beginning to feel this winter weather.
Yeah, you've got a bit of a cold there, or the end of one. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at the end of a cold. I'm just getting over it. Yeah.
What does get over mean?
I'm just recuperating from it.
Yeah, we're recording this in December and it is getting a little cold over here in Spain.
Of course, if you're a South American listener, it's getting pretty hot, right? Because it's your summer there. A bit weird for you to imagine, but we are now in the middle of winter. So, Craig, what about you? How's your week been so far?
It's been a bit of a nightmare, or pesadilla. It hasn't been a very good week, unfortunately. You remember my parents were not very well. They're 86 years old, both of them, and they live down the coast, down in Moreira. Well, my dad, unfortunately, had a fall last week. He fell over outside and banged his head quite badly. So they took him to the local hospital. I went down really fast in my car to the hospital, which is about an hour and a half drive from here. And on the way, I stopped to put petrol in my car, but I put diesel in instead.
Oh, dear.
A stupid thing to do. I was a bit stressed and I didn't look properly and I put diesel in the car. So now the car's in the garage. Thankfully, my dad's okay. He's now at home recovering. But the car is completely, it's not working. So the mechanics are working on it. So that's been my week. Not very good, but I hope it will get better.
Oh, I hope your dad's recovering. How did you get to Moreira in the end? Whenever you stopped, you put in the diesel. How did you continue your journey?
Well, I didn't notice that I'd put diesel in until I got to the hospital. My dad was then sent home by ambulance. So I got in my car and drove back to my parents' house. And on the way back, I noticed the car was doing strange things. It was making a noise, like a kind of a... The engine sounded like that, and then I lost power, so I realised something was wrong with the car. I checked the exhaust was fine, got back in the car, and then thinking about the petrol, and I kind of realised, I wonder if I didn't put the right petrol in the car. Luckily, I managed to get back to where my parents live, but the following day, the car wouldn't start. And there was this smoke coming out the back, this huge clouds of smoke, very black smoke. And then I realised I'd put diesel in the car.
You were lucky that you probably had quite a bit of petrol already in the tank.
About half.
Yeah. Otherwise, you wouldn't have got anywhere. I know people who've done that. And if the tank's empty, you will get about 2 meters and it'll stop.
And it's very isolated. Where my parents live, there aren't many street lights. There isn't much traffic. So I was very lucky that I managed to get back to the house and I didn't break down on the way back to the house. Yeah.
And has your dad got a bruise?
Oh man, he completely cut the side of his face. Ooh. He fell on stones and there was lots of, I wasn't there when it happened, but there was lots of blood, my sister said, and it was quite bad. And because he's in his 80s, he's obviously quite scared now. He's lost some confidence and, he's okay. I mean, he was very, very lucky that nothing was broken, no broken bones, but he's recovering at home. Anyway, enough of my troubles. Do we have any feedback this week?
We do. We have an email from Rafael from Guadalajara. That's Guadalajara in Mexico, not Guadalajara in Spain. And he writes, "Good afternoon from Mexico. Again, write Rafael from Guadalajara." We should change that, Craig, shouldn't we?
Yeah, maybe it's better to say it's Rafael again, or it's Rafael writing from Guadalajara, perhaps.
Yeah. land of tequila and mariachis.
Yeah.
I have a question. What is the difference between below and beneath?
Good question.
Then his next question is, how do you pronounce these words which are climb, escalar, and claim, which is reclamar, more or less, but we'll talk about it in a minute. And the last question, you should say, what is cutre? Or something like this. I thought it's a word from Spain. In Mexican Spanish, not exist, this word. He means this word doesn't exist. Thanks in advance for your help, and I wish you an awesome day. Kind regards, Rafael Leon. Thank you, Rafa.
Yep, and an awesome day to you too, Rafael. Yeah, very good questions.
They are.
So what do you think? What's the difference between below and under?
Well, let's start from the bottom with below. Below, for me, is more or less the same as under. Mm-hmm. Below, under. That's UNDER. For most situations, for example, you can say under the bed, below the bed. Under the bridge, below the bridge. Under the surface, below the surface. Under the radar, below the radar. I don't really see much, if any, difference between them.
I was thinking about that, and although I agree with you, I would be more likely, there's a higher possibility for me to say the pen is under the table than the pen is below the table. Yeah or no?
Possibly. It might be more common, yeah. But it's
not wrong though, is it?
Wrong.
It's below the table.
Definitely not.
But it's not as common, I think, as under the table. Where's the cat? Oh, he's under the table.
Yeah. But it might be because of where we come from. Maybe in other parts of the world, I don't know, maybe in America, Canada, Australia, maybe they prefer below. I don't know. But yeah, I agree with you. I would probably say under, but below sounds fine. But one thing I would say about the word below is that it's commonly used to mean lower or less than a number. I'll give you an example. The car park is below ground level, lower than ground level. It doesn't sound good there if you say under. The car park is under? No. Below ground level, lower than. Mm-hmm. Or what about this one? 4 degrees below zero. That's 4 grados bajo cero. Below zero, less than a number, 0. You wouldn't say under 0, never. We'd never say that.
That's a set phrase, isn't it? It's una frase hecha. Oh, other question for you. Speaking of temperature, now we're in the middle of December as we record this. What was the coldest city in Spain at 9 o'clock this morning? -2 or 2 degrees below 0.
I'm going to guess Zaragoza.
No, good guess though. It's actually Jaén.
Ah, right.
Which is not really, it's not in the north of Spain, is it, Jaén?
No, it's in Andalusia.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Yeah. Very hot in the summer.
Yep. So yeah, below 0, 2 degrees below 0 in Jaén this morning.
I hope that doesn't damage the olives. That's the olive capital of Spain.
Yeah.
Craig, what about under? The word under then. What's that more typical for in your opinion?
Well, I think it indicates more control when there's control of something or some kind of rule or to express guidance. For example, you could say the Allied forces were under General Eisenhower. You could say under the terms of our agreement, for example. So if you have an agreement, you have terms of the agreement, the expression to be under the terms of the agreement. Under Rule 25.2, for example, all committee members must be elected by a majority. So it's kind of like referring to something, isn't it? It's kind of like referring or referencing guidelines or rules, to use the word under this agreement or under this rule.
Definitely not below for that.
No. Are there any other uses?
Yes, under is also very common in certain expressions. So we could call them collocations. It goes with certain words, and below just does not conventionally collocate. It would sound weird if you tried to use it. For example, we say under suspicion. Definitely not below. Bajo sospecha, yeah? Under suspicion, under control, under arrest, under guarantee or under warranty is the same thing. under new management. Can you think of any more?
Under the influence, if you're driving your car after drinking too many beers, you are under the influence of alcohol. So that's another common collocation. Yeah. Under pressure, very good song by Queen, Freddie Mercury, Under Pressure. If you're in court because there's a trial, very often you have to put your hand on the Bible and you swear an oath, which means you are under oath. And sometimes the judge will say, remember, sir, you are under oath, which means you have to tell the truth.
Under the thumb is an idiomatic expression. What does that mean, Craig?
Well, it's usually referred to men rather than women. Mm-hmm. And if you're in a relationship with a wife or girlfriend, whatever the relationship is, if you're under the thumb, then you do everything your partner says. So you are subservient to your partner. So the typical married couple in England where the man is walking 2 or 3 meters behind the wife, carrying all the heavy shopping, saying, and the wife says, come on, hurry up, Harry, hurry up. And say, yes, dear. That man is under the thumb. So he does everything that his wife says. Are you under the thumb, Reza?
Not yet. I'm getting a bit worried, but I'll tell the listeners that story some other day. I'm okay for now.
What about beneath?
For me, beneath is less common than below and under.
We should spell it Beneath. Beneath. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No. That you didn't. That's an important point. And as well as being a bit less common, I'd say it sounds a bit more formal. It sounds more literary, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. For example, you could imagine reading a book and then it says they kissed each other beneath the branches of a beautiful old tree as the sun went down. Now, in that quotation, you could also use below or under. You could say they kissed under the branches or they kissed below the branches, but beneath sounds a bit more literary. It's a bit more formal, a bit more poetic.
Mm-hmm. There is one expression I can think of, one collocation. No, not a collocation, an expression I should say, where we tend to say beneath, like, oh, I don't like John. Why not, you ask me? He treats me as if I were beneath him. Below or under there wouldn't be right. No. Beneath him in the sense of like he's superior to me. Not that he's my boss. No, not that. In that case, I would be under him. If I worked for him, I would be under him. But if he treats me like I'm beneath him, the word beneath there implies that it's a question of his feeling of superiority.
So you're not as good as him.
Right. Wouldn't you say beneath is specific for that?
Yeah. Or it's beneath me to do this. Yeah.
You're too good for it.
Can you clean the bathroom and clean the toilets, Craig? No, that's beneath me. I don't do those things. It's too menial. It's too, no, I don't do that.
Do you, by the way, do you clean the bathroom?
Yeah, once a week. I'm under the thumb.
He's under the thumb. And no menial task is beneath him.
So another question from Raphael was the pronunciation of climb and claim. Well, climb, escalar, C-L-I-M-B. The B is silent, you don't pronounce it, and the vowel sound is I. And the same as I, why, try, my. So climb. The other word, reclamar, is claim, C-L-A-I-M. The same sound as stay, day, way. My name, Craig. That A sound, so claim.
Craig's name, if properly pronounced, not like most people pronounce it.
Believe me, in Spain, I get everything from crick to crack to crog to croc. I get everything. But it's Craig with an A sound. So those words, climb, escalar, claim, reclamar.
One thing about the use of claim, as Craig rightly said, reclamar, it could be. But there's another word which is reclaim in English, which can also be reclamar.
Yeah.
But they're not the same meaning in English anyway. If you claim something, that means you think you have a right to it, or it's yours and it was lost and you want it back.
Unfortunately, because of my accident with the diesel, I cannot claim on my insurance because there is no stupidity clause in my insurance policy. So if I have an accident, I can claim on my insurance, but I cannot claim for putting diesel in my petrol tank.
Yeah. And if you reclaim something like in an airport, you go to get your bags from the baggage carousel, la cinta, that's to reclaim your baggage. But reclamar in the sense of quejarse is neither of those. That's to complain. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's reclamar in the sense of quejarse, right? That's a different word in English, complain.
Yep. And Rafaela's final question was cutre. And I didn't realize that our Latin American friends didn't know that word, that it only exists in Spain, apparently.
Oh, right.
Descuidado, isn't it?
That could be one meaning, yeah, descuidado, or it could mean also the
Tacaño,
or the calidad dudable or something like that, or sospechoso, or in the sense of quality.
Yeah, I've heard it used many times when people speak about a restaurant or a bar or a pub, and they say, "Oh no, don't go there. It's really cutre," which means shabby or seedy, SEEDY, seedy. Or squalid, it's a dive, D-I-V-E, or it's a hole, un agujero, you could say in English.
There's a hotel, I'm sorry if anybody from the hotel's listening, near Valencia, in a place called El Saler, quite a famous hotel. And I love the name of it. It's the El Cidi Hotel. Do you know it? Hotel Cidi.
Yeah, that rings a bell.
Cidi.
I think I recognize that name.
Which in English just sounds hilarious because it's a common collocation to say a seedy hotel.
Yeah.
As Craig said, S-E-E-D-Y, and that means un hotel cutre. But there's a hotel near us called the Cidi Hotel. It's not a good name in English to give you a hotel.
It's like a Spanish speaker going to London and staying in the Cutre Hotel.
Can you imagine? Yeah.
Next, we have a voice message from Lena from Colombia. Although Lena's living in Winnipeg at the moment in Canada, and she kindly gave us our idea for today's episode. So here's Lena.
Hi, Reza. Hi, Craig. This is Lena. I am from Colombia, but now I am living in Canada, specifically in Winnipeg. This is one of the coldest cities in the world. So I would like if you can make a podcast about winter time. I would appreciate very much. And another thing is I really love all your podcasts. They are very good. They are helping me a lot to improve my English. So thank you so much, guys, for your job, and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you very much, Lena. It's very nice to hear from you. Thank you for your compliments.
Yes, thank you, Lena. What lovely pronunciation. Very good.
Very clear, very easy to understand, very clear, and very lovely pronunciation, Lena. Did you notice anything she could improve on, Reza?
Well, the pronunciation was very good. You can't really improve much on that. But I did notice a couple of grammar mistakes. I know I always do. Sorry to be pedantic, Lena, but it's for your own good. I noticed that you said you were living in Canada, a specific, you said, that's what it sounded like to me, a specific Winnipeg. Well, there is no word, a specific. There is a word, specific. Don't say the at the beginning. That was your only mistake in pronunciation. But maybe that's because you think there's a letter E, but there isn't. It's specific. But anyway, that's also wrong because you need an adverb, not an adjective. So you should say specifically Winnipeg. Specifically Winnipeg. Did you notice anything else, Craig?
I think Lena said thank you for your job at the end. Better to say thank you for your work. You could use job with expressions such as great job, guys, or you do a really good job. For work, you'd say thank you for your work.
Yeah, not our job, because this is not a profession that we're paid for. Though, of course, you could become a Patreon sponsor if you want, and we'll remind you about that at the end. But no, this is not our job.
It's a hobby more than a job.
I noticed one more thing, a very typical mistake of many speakers. Lena, you said, you appreciate very much. I understand you, but you have to say what you appreciate in English, because appreciate must have an object, un complemento directo. So you have to say, I appreciate it very much.
Or I appreciate the podcast very much.
The podcast, your work, whatever, but you've got to have an object.
So winter is coming. Well, for Lena, winter is probably here. Winter is coming, Jon Snow. Have you seen Game of Thrones yet?
I've seen a few episodes.
What do you think?
I quite like it.
Did you hear winter is coming?
Yes, that's right.
That goes all the way through the series.
That's the slogan, isn't it?
Winter is coming and it lasts for years. Well, we hope it won't be lasting for years in Winnipeg, but let's look at some words that might help Lena as she speaks about her winter weather in Canada. Blizzard. What's a blizzard? How would you describe it?
And blizzard's something she's probably going to see in Winnipeg. It's a severe snowstorm with high winds. High winds is ventisca. Yeah. So it's tormenta de nieve. Ventisca, nevasca.
And a snowfall is very common in Canada. So when snow falls, it's a snowfall. And that is moved by a snow plow. P-L-O-U-G-H, which I think in Spanish is barradora. A plow, P-L-O-U-G-H, that's used in the fields is arado. And in American English, it's spelt P-L-O-W. But to move snow, I think it's barradora in Spanish, a snow plow. So when there's a snowfall and the snow stays on the ground, there's a blanket of snow. We say a blanket, una manta of snow. Then you'd usually use a snow plow to move it.
Particularly if there's a snow drift. When the snow has moved everywhere, it's drifted, it's kind of slowly moved and it's covered everything, right? A snow drift.
I always wondered that, because there must be someone driving the snowplow. How do they get to work?
Good question. I presume on foot.
They must do, because the snowplow moves the snow so the cars can drive on the roads. But how does that person get to the snowplow so that they can clear the roads? I've always wondered that.
Craig, you could look at snow more closely and you would discover that it's made up of snowdrops.
Yep. Or snowflakes.
Yes. Yeah. Snowflakes are...
Copos? Copo de nieve?
Copos, aren't they? And they're beautiful. Have you ever seen one under a microscope?
No, I haven't.
Oh, they're beautiful symmetric shapes. They're incredible.
The name of Simpson's cat, if you watch The Simpsons, is Snowball. So that's what you would make if you have a snowball fight. So you take the snow, make a ball from the snow, and then you throw snowballs or make a snowman.
I imagine there are a lot of snowball fights in Winnipeg and not many in Colombia, Lena. Not many at all.
Sleet is something I hate. S-L-E-E-T. Sleet is a mixture of snow and rain. So it's when it's kind of raining, but the rain's frozen. And it can be quite painful if there's a wind. Yeah. And it's something I really don't like. It doesn't have the attraction of snow. And it's not as soft as rain. So it's, I don't know, sleet. Are you a sleet
I totally
fan?
Agree with you. It's my least favorite weather.
Yeah.
Sleet is my least favorite weather. I hate it. It's the worst of all worlds. It's very cold. But instead of just rain, which won't hurt you, this is kind of like rain, which will make you wet and hurt you because it's half solid when it hits your face. It's just the worst of everything.
Do you get much sleet in Belfast?
Yeah, we do. I'd far rather have snow any day or rain.
Another thing I don't like very much is slush. S-L-U-S-H. It's kind of a half liquid, wet, messy snow on the ground. It's when the snow's on the ground and it starts to melt and it gets mixed with the mud and goes dirty. And it's really horrible stuff.
Another thing you get in winter, and sometimes other times of the year as well, are driving winds. Driving or gale force winds. That means very, very strong winds.
Yeah, we spoke about gale force winds when we spoke about disasters recently. And we spoke about below zero in this episode, sub-zero temperatures. Sub means under, submarine, for example, substandard. So sub-zero is below zero.
When it's below zero, You'll get ice, of course, and you might even get black ice. That's that ice that it's hard to see. It probably isn't really black, but because of the background, what's behind it, you can't see it and it looks black. And of course, that's really dangerous because if you can't see the ice, you don't prepare for it and you're very likely to slip. It's very slippery.
What does slip mean?
When there's a lack of friction, that force holding you to a surface, maybe due to ice or snow or maybe oil on the ground, that's when you slip. You lose your balance because there's no friction.
So if you're walking along the street and there's black ice, you might slip or fall over or slip over. But if you're in a car and you brake, the car slides.
What do you mean by brake? Do you mean romper?
No, brake, frenar. You might brake and skid, skid. When a car skids, it slides, it slides over the ground, and that's very common when there's black ice. So you have to be very, very careful, drive slowly, maybe use chains if there's a lot of snow and ice on the ground.
You have to be careful with the temperature in winter, of course, because apart from the temperature being cold in itself, you have to take into account the wind chill factor. The wind chill. That means if there's wind and it's cold, it will feel even colder than it really is.
Yeah, because the wind's blowing the cold in your face. Yeah.
And I bet in Canada, they really take the wind chill factor into account, particularly on the coast.
Sometimes in Spain, it doesn't get that cold, but you do wake up in the morning and go to the car and there's a layer, una capa, there's a layer of frost covering the car on the windscreen, on the glass of the car. Frost, F-R-O-S-T. That's like a covering of very small ice crystals on the surface. I think it's escarcha in Spanish.
Yeah, not enough to be ice, not quite ice. I'm sure a lot of Spanish speakers know the term frost from no frost, because in fridges it's often written, including in Spain, es un frigorífico, no frost. You say, a no frost fridge, one which doesn't produce frost. So you can also sign frost in your fridge if you're unlucky, but if you buy a no frost fridge, you won't get it.
And the adjective of frost is frosty. Just add a Y. So you can have a frosty morning, a frosty weather. It's very frosty today.
If you're very unlucky, you might end up with frostbite. Don't worry, no one's going to bite you. It's not that. Frostbite is when very cold weather damages your body, your fingers or hands or arms or toes or legs.
They go black, don't they?
They go black. Your limbs, limbs, the parts of the body we mentioned, they might go black and be permanently damaged.
It's very, very dangerous. If you are climbing a mountain and suddenly the weather changes, you don't have the correct clothes, you're exposed to the elements for a long time, then frostbite is a very strong possibility. What's an icicle?
Icicle, I-C-I-C-L-E, is a piece of ice hanging from above. It can hang from the roof of your house or in a cave or anywhere where water freezes, which is falling to the ground. So it has to be very cold for that to happen.
So those were a few words to help Lena speak about the weather in Winnipeg. Let's look at some expressions you could use also to maybe have some small talk with your neighbour or start a conversation in English. It's very common in the UK for people to speak about the weather, and you could use expressions such as, it's chilly out. It's a bit cold. Now, with these expressions to speak about the weather, if you change it to a tag question, then that becomes conversational and you're inviting conversation from your neighbour or the person you're speaking to. So, it's chilly out today, isn't it? Could begin a conversation. Or, it's a bit cold today, isn't it?
Can you spell chilly, Craig?
Chilly, chill, C-H-I-L-L-Y, chilly. It's chilly. It's a little cold, a little frosty.
Yeah. Ending in Y, not I. because that certainly wouldn't be cold.
Chilies are hot, aren't
Yeah,
they?
it's the end and I. A chili pepper is CHILLI.
Right.
Some people say it's brisk. Now, brisk can mean quick. If you move in a brisk way, you're moving quickly. But when you're talking about the weather, it means quite cold with a fairly strong wind. That's brisk, we say.
And if you want to express very, very, very cold weather, like you feel extremely cold, just say it's freezing or I'm freezing. You can say I'm freezing cold. So that adjective emphasizes the noun. It modifies the noun. It's freezing cold today, or it's bloody cold outside.
What does bloody mean, Craig?
In this use, it means extremely or very. So it has different uses. But in this case, it means very cold. It's bloody cold today, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And it's a very common adjective with all weather expressions, isn't it? That you don't like. What's the weather like? Bloody awful, bloody freezing, bloody boiling. If you don't like weather, you can say bloody before it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could also say there's a biting wind. Biting. Imagine the wind is so strong and cold that it feels like someone actually biting you more at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Another expression, a cold snap, which is ola de frio, that's snap, S-N-A-P. We've had a cold snap last week here in Valencia, a few days of unusually cold weather. But the verb to snap means to break with a noise, like you could snap a biscuit or you could snap a piece of wood. But here it means, a cold snap means ola de frio.
Very often people say they may be exaggerating or they may be telling the truth. They say, I can't feel my toes.
It's so cold, I can't feel my toes, yeah.
Or my fingers have gone numb. N-U-M-B. Numb, that means there's no sensation.
Or my toes have gone numb, you could say.
Yeah.
Or my nose has gone numb.
Can anything happen to any other body part, Craig?
It depends how well you've got it covered. But yeah, I suppose anything could go numb if it's cold enough.
If you don't cover your posterior properly, you might freeze your arse off.
Freeze your bum off.
Yeah. So can you imagine, to freeze off? The idea of off means it's so cold that it's frozen and it's dropped off because of the cold, like a piece of ice.
Yeah, I've lost my bum. It's frozen off.
Can you imagine? Obviously, a bit of an exaggeration, but people say it.
Where's your bum? Oh, it was so cold outside, it just froze off.
Craig, what on earth are brass monkeys when people say, it's brass monkeys out there? What are they talking about?
It means it's very, very cold. I mean, I can't imagine a brass monkey being cold, but I suppose this expression...
Oh, it would be, because brass is a metal and anything metallic in the cold seems even colder, so
True.
It would be cold.
True.
But why a monkey?
I don't know. But the expression, it's brass monkeys, means it's very, very cold. It's brass monkeys out there today. That's very colloquial. I think that's more common in the UK than the US.
Yeah. To protect yourself against the cold weather, you'll need to wrap up warm or wrap up well. That's W-R-A-P. I ain't talking about singing like some cool guy like I'm not doing now. You know what I mean? Rapping. No, I mean W-R-A-P. To rap is in Volverte. That type of rapping.
Not Christmas rapping.
No, not that either. So it means to wear clothes to keep you warm. So you got to wrap. It's the sort of thing your mum will tell you if you're a child. Hey, you going out, little boy? You wrap up warm, wrap up well. It's freezing cold out there.
And if you are constantly cold, and I can think of 2 or 3 people in my life who are constantly cold, especially my mum, you feel the cold. If you say, oh yeah, I really feel the cold. Friolero, I think in Spanish.
Yeah, you have a word for it. We don't. We have to say, I feel the cold. In English, you've got to say, to feel the cold. I feel the cold. Soy friolero.
Yeah, I really feel the cold. Can you think of any idioms with cold weather in them?
Yes, some common ones are, for example, to break the ice or an icebreaker. That's not physically hitting blocks of ice. No. It means starting a conversation or getting to know someone. You break the ice. Like making the ice melt. M-E-L-T, melt, like when ice turns into water. So let's say the relationship is cold at the beginning. So you want to make it warmer. You want to break the ice.
So an example of an icebreaker would be, oh, it's cold today, isn't it? Just saying that to somebody while you're waiting for the bus.
Craig, has anyone ever given you the cold shoulder?
Has anyone ignored me? Yes, many times. People have ignored me. They've given me the cold shoulder. So if you give the cold shoulder to someone, you ignore them. You don't speak to them.
That reminds me of a terrible joke. A man goes into a doctor's and says, Doctor, everyone keeps giving me the cold shoulder. And the doctor says, next.
If you get cold feet, then you hesitate. You don't do something. For example, I saw this beautiful woman in the cafe yesterday, and I was going to offer to buy her a drink and go and speak to her, but she was so attractive that I got cold feet. I decided not to speak to her. I was too shy.
So you got cold feet because you thought you didn't have a snowball's chance in hell.
Yeah,
right?
she was so attractive. I thought I don't have a snowball's chance in hell. What does that mean?
That means you're not going to be successful. Because if hell is a very hot place where you get burned to death, well, a snowball, they don't exist. A snowball is not going to last very long.
Yep. And hell, of course, is infierno. For example, Arsenal, my football team, Arsenal have got a snowball's chance in hell of winning the league this year. Or I could say, when hell freezes over. When hell freezes over, they'll win the league. What's the coldest you've ever been, Reza? What's the coldest you've ever felt? Do you remember a time when you were really, really freezing?
I certainly do. Selling newspapers in Berlin in the early 1990s. And it was the winter. Mm-hmm. I was there from about November to April or something like that, or May. I worked through the winter, and I had to stand outside near train stations from about 6 in the morning to 10 in the morning. And sometimes it was snowing, sometimes it was sleet and everything. It was so cold. You can imagine just standing around.
It gets very cold in Berlin. Do you have any idea what the temperature was on average?
From in December, January, February, the average when I was there, which was like 6 in the morning, was probably about 1 or 2 degrees. But sometimes it was below zero. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it was -2, 5, 6, well, sometimes. Not pleasant, just standing there. And you can't even go walking. You've got to stay in the same place, which makes you feel even colder. That's my coldest experience. What about you?
I remember once traveling to a place called Leh in Ladakh, which is in the north of India, the very north of India on the border with the Himalayas. And I was on a bus, and when the bus arrived in this place, it was quite late in the evening. It was about 9, 10 o'clock. Now, half the bus were local people. They went straight home. And half the bus were backpackers like me, tourists who were looking for a cheap place to stay. As soon as the bus doors opened, all of the backpackers ran out of the bus and started going in different directions. And I didn't understand why they were running. But then I realized there weren't many places to sleep in this town. And I couldn't find anywhere to stay the night. So I had to sleep outside in the street. So I opened my backpack, put on clothes, but I was so cold. I didn't sleep at all. I just sat in the doorway of this house waiting for it to open the following morning and just sat there shivering all night. That was the coldest I've ever been in my life.
Wow.
And I don't think it was really that cold. I don't think it was below zero, but it was just being outside and being just sitting without a blanket, just with clothes on. I just felt really, really cold. It was freezing.
And would you rather be too hot or too cold if you had to choose?
Too cold, definitely. Because you can always get warm. You can do physical exercise. You can run, move around. You can put on more clothes. But I really suffer here in Spain in August and July because you can take off all your clothes and you're still really, really hot. And there's nothing you can do if you don't have a fan or air conditioning. It's really bad. What about you?
The same, yeah. For the reasons you've just said, you can't get rid of excessive heat. You can't do anything about it. Are there any cold places you'd like to visit? For example, Canada?
I'd like to go to Canada. I'd like to go to Winnipeg, go and visit Lena. I'd really like that. Maybe Alaska would be interesting to go to Alaska as well. And you?
Yes, I've always fancied Canada. It appeals to me. Yeah. Also, Iceland. I think you've been there, haven't you?
A few years ago, yeah.
How was that? Yeah.
Really, really nice place. Lovely people. Really, and it's really popular now. When I went a few years ago, it wasn't so popular, but the last few years you can fly directly from many places in Europe, and it's a very popular destination, especially if you're a photographer. It's a really good place to go and take pictures of the landscape and the glaciers and everything. It's really, really, really interesting country.
Craig, I have a question for you. And for all our male listeners, I'm afraid I have to direct it towards the gentleman. Have you ever written your name in the snow? I mean, in the snow without a pen.
You mean when warm liquid melts the snow?
Yes.
And I don't think I have. I don't think. Have you?
No, I don't think I have. No, I haven't. But, it's a kind of joke thing, that if you were to urinate in the snow, because it leaves a yellow mark, you could write your name. And a few crazy people have done it.
Yeah.
I haven't actually done it myself, but it's kind of a joke thing that you can write your name in the snow if you're a man. It's a bit trickier for women, I would say.
And now it's your turn.
Let's move on swiftly, Craig.
And now it's your turn to practice your English. Have you ever written your name in the snow? What's the coldest you've ever felt or the coldest place you've ever visited? Send us a voice message and tell us your opinion. You can reach us by voice going to speakpipe.com/English podcast or send us an email with a comment or question to reza@belfastreza@gmail.com
or to craig@englishpodcast.com.
And if you would like more detailed show notes, you could support us on Patreon, and that is at patreon.com/English podcast. And Bruno, a long-time alcoholic and fan of the show, has signed up on Patreon to be a gold sponsor. So we'd like to thank Bruno very much for his generosity. And Bruno offers walking tours of Copenhagen. Is it Copenhagen or Copenhagen? What do you say?
Copenhagen, I say.
I say Copenhagen, yeah. In Denmark. So if you're going to Copenhagen this Christmas or within the next month or two, why not have a walking tour with Bruno's company? You can find information at copenhagenwalkingtour.com. And of course, that link will be in our show notes at englishpodcast.com/187. Now, his tours include walking tours of Copenhagen in English or Spanish. So you can see the Tivoli Gardens, the Amalienborg Palace. There's the oldest shopping street in the world in Copenhagen. And the professional guides will show you where these places are and explain everything to you. And Bruno's offering a 10% discount on his tours for all alcoholics. So if you apply for a tour, don't forget to mention you listen to this podcast. And thanks, Bruno. Your donation as a gold Patreon will go a long way into providing transcriptions for our listeners. Reza, let's thank our other lovely sponsors. Who are they?
Beatriz, Pedro, Maite, Lara, Rafa, Nestor García Mañez from nestorgm.com, Luces Extrañas, Maria, Lorena, Sara, Carlos, Mamen, Juan Leiva, Cory Finneran from ivnv.com, Miren, José Luis, Agus, Mariel, Manuel García Betegón, Jorge Jiménez, Raúl López, Rafael, Manuel Tarazona, José Manuel, Juan Carlos, Pilar, and Gambate blog. And our latest patrons, Anna Giovanna. Anna recommended the book The Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake, not Three Dark Crows by Kendare Black, as was mistakenly written.
Yeah, there's a small correction there. So the recommendation that Anna made was for Three Dark Crowns by Kendare Blake. And we have another new sponsor, Igor Garmendia, who sent us this voice message.
Hi, Craig, Reza, and also the listeners. This is Igor from San Sebastian, north of Spain in the Basque Country. This message, as I told you in the last email I sent you, is to tell you why I decided to support this program through the Patreon system. As many listeners say, your podcast is very useful for the people are trying to learn English, like me. It is good because you do it very entertaining, touching different topics and always with a very good sense of humor. It is really funny and it's clear that you get on well with each other. I don't know how the Patreon system works. Maybe someday you could explain us. But I think what you ask in exchange for supporting this podcast is very little. €1 per month is nothing. It's like the cost of a little beer. So I like to think that I'm like inviting you a beer and having my weekly English lesson. That is all. Thank you for everything. See you then. Bye bye.
Well, thank you very much, Igor. It's great to get your voice message, and thank you very much for becoming a patron of the show.
Yes, thanks a lot, Igor. Yes, he's right. Some people give us a euro or maybe $1. It's not an awful lot of money. It could get you one of those little Basque beers. What are they called? Un zurrita or zurrito? I can't remember.
Zurrito, I think.
Zurrito, isn't it? Yeah. So if you're interested, Craig, what do you have to do if you want to become a Patreon sponsor?
Just go to patreon.com/inglespodcast and sign up for the program, and they'll ask you to fill in some details, and then every month they will take the money from your credit card or your bank account, and if it's €1, $1 a month, it's $1 a month, or $2 a month, whatever you feel you like to give. But all the information is over on the Patreon page. Just one quick correction on Igor's message. You said, Igor, inviting you a beer. It's better to say buying you a beer, or use the verb to treat. So treating you to a beer. When you say in Spanish te invito, what you really should say in English is it's my treat, or perhaps it's on me. So we would not use the verb invite in that expression. So treating you to a beer, or the beer is on me.
And many thanks to Patricia Alonso, who's been working hard to transcribe episodes for you. You can find gratis, 1 to 11 and 131 to 142.
Yeah, thanks very much, Patricia. And Angelica is doing our Patreon transcriptions, so she's transcribing the latest episodes. And you can find those obviously on the Patreon page. We send you an email every time a new transcription is published. And Angelica had a comment from episode 182 that we did on DIY, do it yourself. Reza said a couple of times herramientos, but the word is herramientas. Now, I think that was me because that's a mistake I typically make. So it's a feminine noun in Spanish. But I can't imagine Reza making that kind of mistake. I'm sure that was me. So we apologize for that. And thank you very much, Angelica, for your correction. What's next week, Reza?
On next week's episode, art vocabulary.
So until next week, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.